Flour tortillas are very simple to make and very quick. We want to start with our all-purpose flour and our kosher salt. And then we're going to give this a good pulse to just mix up the dry ingredients so they're evenly distributed. I have here my lard, which I had actually frozen, and you can add this in a few different chunks so that it isn't all in one piece. Place that into your bowl. We're gonna pulse this about 10-15 times. So that the lard breaks up in there and actually forms some small clumps. Very similar to making pie dough when you're looking for pea-sized chunks. This might be a little bit smaller because the lard is very soft, so that's why we want to keep it nice and cold. But I say little pieces in there, so that looks great. Not any large chunks. And then we're going to add our cold water. I actually had put an ice cube when I added the water in here, so it stays very cold and then it doesn't smear the lard too much. So I'm going to add this in while I'm mixing until it just comes together. Holding it on, and you'll see the dough actually form a ball. Perfect. So as soon as that dough forms a ball, it's ready to take out of our mixer. I'm going to lightly dust my surface with this excess flour that I have on the side here and invert my tortilla mixture onto the cutting board. Make sure you scrape out all of your dough and remove it from the blade very gently. And then I want to just knead this slightly. Again, don't use too much flour, just enough so that it's not sticking to the board. And I want to knead this until it comes together to a smooth and elastic dough. Once this does, we're going to wrap this in saran wrap, let it rest for about 30 minutes, and then we'll come back to make our tortillas. The colder you keep your water and the colder that you keep your lard, the less messy this will be when you're working with it. So try and keep all your ingredients nice and cold. Once the tortilla dough has rested, you want to take it out of the plastic wrap. And you'll see all those little spots on there. That's just the lard. That's totally fine. That's actually going to help make it puff when we go to cook it. Take a little bit of my dusting flour. Go ahead and press out the dough so it's a rectangle. And we're going to cut about 8 pieces. You can make these smaller or larger to whatever your liking is. I'm just going to do these in about 8 sections. So I'm going to mark my dough first and then cut through. And then I'm going to form each one of these into a small ball and set it aside for about 5 minutes, and then come back and we're going to roll out our individual tortillas. Once your tortillas have rested, you want to remove the plastic wrap and you're ready to roll out. Please make sure that you don't use too much flour. You want to start by forming them into little circles by just pressing out the discs. And that will get them started. So at least you have like a round to start rolling. So we're going to go in the same order, place them to the side. And then we're going to come back and start with the first one and roll these into very thin, about 7-inch circles. It could be 6, it really just depends how thin you're capable of rolling them. We want to start with just a little bit of flour, not too much. And then our rolling pin will push one direction and then turn the tortilla. And if it does start to stick on here, just add a little bit more flour, top or bottom. And we're going to do this in stages as well, so it doesn't bounce back too much on us. So I like to hold the tortilla a little bit and then pull the rolling pin and then set that aside. Let that gluten rest in there so it has a chance to be able to roll out thinner on the next time. So you notice I'm always rolling front to back on the rolling pin, and I'm turning my tortilla. So if you have a smaller dowel or rolling pin, that works really well too. So I'm gonna place them here and do all 8 of them, and then we'll come back and do the rest. I've rolled out 4, which is half of my dough, and the other ones I'm actually gonna place back into the refrigerator, and I can do these another day. So these will last about 2-3 days in the refrigerator. So if you want fresh rolled tortillas, you can do those on a daily basis. So these ones, I'm gonna start with the first one that I did, and again, dust it again, just lightly, and I'm gonna roll them just a little bit thinner. So go do a once over on all these tortillas. They're nice and thin. You can stretch them a little bit, try and maintain that round, and you can see the difference in sizes here. So we're aiming for this, and then we're going to get our camal ready on the stove. Once the tortillas have been rolled out for their final shape, you can dust them slightly with some flour. And I'm gonna transfer them onto a pan so I can bring them over to my comal, which is basically like a griddle. It's a very thin steel griddle. You can use an electric griddle if you have one as well. But by dusting them a little bit, then these won't stick to each other. So I'm gonna place these on here and bring them over to the stove. When your comal or your electric griddle, whatever you're using, is nice and hot, you want to go ahead and place your tortilla on the palm of your hand. You can lay it down this way, or you can flip it over, whichever you're more comfortable with. With this one, I can only do one at a time. Sometimes they make a larger comal that fits 2 burners, and so you could do multiple tortillas at a time. This is a good taco size. If you want to do much larger for burritos, you're going to have to roll them out a lot bigger. You want your heat to be a kind of a medium high heat. Not too hot, or else you'll burn the dough a little too quickly. But you'll see it start to bubble up a little bit, and that's what you're looking for. Is it to cook thoroughly throughout. It's a very thin dough, and it'll start to bubble right here. So we're looking for a nice light brown on both sides. I'll turn it over in just a second. It's blistering beautifully, rising up. That's all that fat and the water trapped inside, and the steam. It's creating steam, and it just wants to escape. So it's escaping within the dough because it's trapped. So I'm gonna flip this over. And you see that beautiful, nice kind of dotted brown in there. So you can deflate it slightly, or you can leave those holes, whatever you prefer. So it's gonna take about 30 seconds to a minute per side, depending on the temperature of your stove. Again, not too hot and not too cool. So I'm almost finished here. No oil on the pan, just nice and dry. And you see the other side, we are completed with our tortilla. You want to keep doing that. You can keep these in a tortilla basket or in between a towel to keep the steam inside, keep them warm, nice and pliable until you're ready to use them. When your tortillas are completed, front and back, go ahead and place them in a tortilla basket to keep them warm. And you have wonderful, fresh, homemade flour tortillas.